Hey, good afternoon. Scott Luton and Greg White with you here back on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Greg, good afternoon. How you doing?
Howdy, I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm kind of looking forward to this little live stream here.
I am too. Great guest in the works. We got Jill Clifford, president at FreightPlus, which many of you will recognize formerly as Aborn and Company. We look forward to getting her best practices on all things transportation in 2021 and of course, greater supply chain and leadership. But also, Greg, I noticed you've got your alma mater on your, was that your right shoulder?
Left.
Left.
So, is my camera reversed? Yeah, this is my left over my heart.
And that is Wichita State University, home of the
Shockers.
That's right.
Officially the Wheat Shockers, but we just go by Shockers.
Air capital of the world. You think
my buddy Woo Shock here. So
rebuilding the basketball program just a smidge, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I'm sure, I hope we will be visited by yet another Shocker, A.A. Mohib Ashfaq. So we found out his name not so long ago and shared it with the world.
Well, love his
now we're working on his middle name.
Love his contributions to the live stream and love the connection to the air capital of the world. Go Shockers. All right. So before we get started, two quick programming notes. First off, this is our weekly Thursday, 12 noon Eastern time live stream. And we rotate a variety of topics. Today, we're talking transportation and supply chain leadership. Next week, I think we're talking digital transformers. 1 week, we've got Tequila Sunrise coming up, all things technology. And really, there's so much taking place. There's so much that our community is interested in. This Thursday is kind of our buffet table of global business, isn't it, Greg?
Yeah, and I like the idea. I mean, which was your idea, but I love the idea, since even if it wasn't mine, of featuring some of the other shows so people can get a look at them, right? And then they can decide if they want to subscribe.
Yes. The only requirement.
I always wanted to do that. Subscribe.
It's in the comments, as I said 1,000 times. But the only requirement is you bring your POV, you bring your voice, you bring what's on your mind. That's one of our favorite things about these live streams is our community always brings it. And I've learned as much from their commentary as I have from our guests. And that's one of my favorite parts of the week. So every Thursday, 12 noon, across these 5 social channels, soon to be Instagram, you can enjoy one of the, hopefully, the enjoyable, informative conversations in business every week. Now, that's the first programming note. Secondly, if you enjoyed today's conversation, of course, find us wherever you get your podcast from. Search for Supply Chain Now and subscribe so you don't miss a single thing. Subscribe for free, money back guarantee.
Don't forget YouTube.
And YouTube, that's right.
And I want to do it again. Whoops, there it is. Hit that subscribe button and the little bell. Right.
All right. So now that the bills are paid, everybody, let's say hello to a few folks in the community before we bring on our wonderful guest here today. I had a great opportunity to connect with Bob yesterday, Greg, and Bob is a supply chain practitioner with a lot of inventory experience. And,
good.
And he's in the Allentown area of Pennsylvania. And like many of we've all been there. He's looking for his next opportunity. So, and he's a U.S. Navy veteran. So if you're hiring in the comments, hey, make sure you connect with Bob. And if you're not, still connect with Bob. He's good people.
Talk to GNC, Bob.
GNC. That's a great tip. Yeah. GNC. Peter is with us. Peter, he has been on fire. He and I were talking this morning about the returns industry. And despite all the gains they've made in the last 10 years, how much more opportunity there is to continue to make that, I don't know, more practical, more sustainable, a greater win for both consumers and retailers and the environment. So a lot more work to do there.
What I find fascinating is his profile says retired, but he's the most active retired dude. He's not retired. He might be retired from Air Canada, but he's working hard.
Astute observation. Hello, Sabin. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I think the L is silent. If I'm not, hey, give me a shout out. But great to have you here via LinkedIn. Ahmed, great to have you. Akib, great to have you here via LinkedIn. Anna Mary is back. And I know I've got that right after
because she confirmed
yesterday.
it. Yeah, that's right.
And she's also a fellow Atlantan. So great to have you here, Anna Mary, with us. LK, Larry Klein is back from Albany, Georgia. I think I got that right. Larry, great to have you back.
Yeah, this is probably one of the biggest debates of all time. Is it Albany, or Albany?
It's definitely up there with the greatest sports teams of all time.
I agree.
The greatest human contributions.
Right. Who's the greatest world shaper of all time?
Right. But Larry, great to have you. Happy New Year. Pratik. You can't do a live stream without Pratik. Great to have you with us. Marie, hello from ATL, of course. Marie enjoyed your comments around retail yesterday. God, the days are running together.
It was yesterday. Yeah.
Mike Avra is with us. Good morning. Daria, Super Thursday. Hey, Daria, great to have you back. And let's see here. One more really quick. David, of course. Great to have you here, David. Hope this finds
there he is.
You well. Clay says, up there with chicken or the egg, had a roommate from Albany. It's a touchy subject.
It is very touchy subject.
All right, Scott, and thank you. Good morning, Gary. It's pronounced Albany. I never get that right.
See, that's part of the conflict because I've heard it. A friend of mine he must be from a town nearby called Albany. So,
oh gosh, I hope everybody enjoys these live streams as much as you and I do. I don't know, Megan. Good morning. Great to have you here from ATL.
Yeah, is Megan new? Welcome aboard, Megan.
Well, if she is, welcome aboard. I see that she is in the project management profession, which is
there we go.
Incredibly important profession here lately, craft, as Greg likes to say. So great to have you here, Megan. Okay, no further ado. Appreciate everybody for joining. Hopefully y'all brought your voice, you brought your POV. We have a wonderful guest here today. With no further ado, I want to welcome in Jill Clifford, president at FreightPlus, formerly Aborn and Company. Jill, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm chuckling over all these names for Albany. I say Albany, but I'm from Boston, so do not ask me.
So you can see that we only tackle the most important topics until you get on, and then we get serious.
Nothing's more fun than that, though. Let me tell you, it's good times.
Agree. Well, great to have you. We've enjoyed connecting and collaborating with the Aborn and Company, now FreightPlus family, going back months. Right. We enjoyed Kyle McNaught, collaborated with him, had a fun conversation, Jill. I love y'all's podcast. I've tracked that for years. Really love y'all's give back there beyond all the expertise you offer. So, but Jill, the exciting thing here is you're rebranding with all this growth you're experiencing.
We have, yeah. Yeah, it's been fun. So, the company was founded in 1988, and that was right after deregulation, right? And so there were so many shippers and folks responsible for carrier pricing that had no idea how to price freight. And so that's really where our roots started in a consultative role. So Russ Aborn, the founder of our company, we've been in this consultative role, really helping companies get in the best practice as it relates to negotiating transportation rates and finding the right service, and then working with them operationally. A lot of times you hear, I have a carrier problem, I have a carrier problem, I have a carrier problem. And the reality is sometimes you have a problem that can actually help source better carriers to get the service that you need. And so and that's the consulting we still do today, but we've also now fully integrated with technology, some innovation, a big data science team. So we're now a full integrated solution. People call us a 4PL or a control tower, but we see ourselves as employees of our clients, and we manage their freight from order right through the carrier invoice and then all the data analytics that go with that. So we rebranded really just to match the work we were doing with our identity. We're no longer just consulting. We're really this full integrated solution.
Love it. You'll be my first call, my very first call. I've got the bat phone under the cake dish, just out of the shop to my right.
Yeah, there you go.
But congrats on all the growth. Congrats on the evolving the business model that helps serve your customers more effectively, and love the name, love the rebrand. It really, to me at least, signifies a lot of good stuff ahead.
And it's still a family company, right? Because I saw Steve is
Yes.
right on the front page, right? So,
oh yeah, he's one of the partners here.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it's
So,
fantastic human being.
are you all still doing consulting as well as all the tech and 4PL type stuff?
I mean, the consulting part has never left the service and never
Right.
will. There's a whole lot of folks here from freight operations. You know, our VP of Ops was at SCN Retail and Shark Ninja and Wayfair. You know, so just some real good operations experience. And we do think that's what sets us apart. You know, the technology, the data analytics, the innovation are so important. But if you don't understand how to operate freight, that's not going to work for you as well, right? So I think we bring a really good solution. I know we do. It's great. I'm so passionate about all of it. It's good stuff.
Outstanding. All right, so we're gonna get to know you a little better here on the front end. But before we do, though, I want to say hello to Nerfad is with us. Madison Smoot is looking forward, Jill, to your conversation here today. Nick Rumor is with us. We were able to connect with Nick across the pond last week. Happy New Year to all of y'all, and great to have you here. All right, so Jill, we want to get to know you first before Greg takes the baton and we dive in deeper to your expertise and the industry, what you're seeing, and some best practices there. But you know, kind of like what we talked about, we'd love to get a couple notes personally about Jill Clifford and a couple notes professionally. So let's start personally. You know, where are you from, and you know, give us an anecdote or two about your upbringing.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Massachusetts, south of Boston, where I still am today. Not in the same town, but one of four. Actually, I have three brothers, two older and a twin. Raised by a single mom. And after high school, when I was graduating high school, honestly, I wanted to be a hairdresser. And but I needed a job and I needed to make money. And so one of my best friend's moms was an office manager at a trucking company. It was St. Johnsbury Trucking. They were an LTL regional carrier, and that's where my career started. So I was with St. Johnsbury for a number of years. I kind of did everything at the company, and I landed working for the national account sales guy. So I took care of all his clients' freight. And at the time, Aborn, which was then called PMC Logistics, was one of his clients. And so I spent a bunch of years there, and then I went to overnight transportation, which became UPS Freight, and opened a terminal, which was a blast because we did it. You know, we were doing all the dock work, everything, and that's when, believe it or not, imaging started. You know, we had phones, didn't have a fax, but we had this big imaging machine. So you know, I just started to dip my toe in technology per se.
Imaging, wow.
That's right. Yeah,
that's a blast from the past, isn't it?
It's pretty wild. And so so our founder, Russ, as I mentioned before, Russ Aborn, he was looking for someone to help with clients, and so I started in 1993, and I've been here ever since. And I pretty much, my role, and it's really still my role today, and in a lot of ways, is to take care of the clients. We're extremely customer focused, and I think we do a really good job of customizing programs because, you know, freight is freight when you get it on a truck, but there are so many variables that go into that. Customers are unique, deliveries are unique, products are unique. So just really understanding our clients, what their focus is, and then really managing their transportation program for them so that they can run their business.
Love that.
That's what I've been doing.
So Jill and Greg in the comments, I'm scared to mess with you, Jill. Clearly,
right. Clay announced that, didn't he?
Clay announced it as
Three brothers from Boston.
Three brothers from Boston.
Oh, that is true. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Get this though, Kyle elevates that a little bit. Total rock star. You come after one of us at FreightPlus, she goes total mama bear on the full. So love that. Saying hello to Matasim, who joined us via LinkedIn, and a supply chain rising trainer and consultant via LinkedIn. Looking for, by the way, I'll just throw this out there if we can get to it through the conversation, Jill, great. But transportation modeling for developing countries like Pakistan. We'll try to get to that here today. And I want to say hello to Chris Gula, just got on via LinkedIn, and Dr. Vyas Great to have you here via India. Happy New Year to you, Dr. Vyas. All right. So, Greg, now we're going to dive into the heavy lifting, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right after this moment. And that is Nerfad and Nick Rumer are already arguing about their football clubs, their fandoms. And so, hey, come on, keep it on topic, boys. Yeah. So first of all, yet another example, Scott, of someone who kind of fell backwards into supply chain. I mean, and Jill, I mean, at the time that you got into the supply chain industry, there wasn't a training like there is today. There were very few, if any, degrees, just a handful around the entire world where you could get anything that even remotely approximated a supply chain degree. And we've seen people come from other industries and bring new perspectives, we would call them. But coming from that industry, from outside the industry in 1993, it had to have looked a lot different to your life reference at that time. But I'm curious, before we go to 2021, I'm curious, how have you seen kind of transportation and logistics and supply chain overall? How have you seen that evolve? Is there anything that just jumps out at you that is in the forefront of your mind?
Well, honestly, what gets me, like my heart, is that supply chain is actually a role, and that transportation does matter in organizations. They were always the stepchild of an organization, and we've reported to the folks in the warehouse were responsible for carriers. The folks in purchasing were responsible for carriers, but there was no real transportation function. No one even knew what supply chain was. It wasn't even a word when I started, but there just wasn't any. Someone got stuck with it, right?
Yeah.
And then they were stuck with this, pretty large spend. When you look at your overall business, freight can be a large spend of your overall business. And they were being asked really tough questions of, their CFOs and their CEOs, and what do you do? And they didn't know. They weren't trained. There was no school. There was nowhere to go to learn any of this stuff. And so, honestly, being in the industry for as long as I have, it's empowering. It's exciting to see these. You have chief supply chain officers.
Right.
How amazing is that?
Yeah.
And that 20 years ago was the person in the warehouse who owned the relationships with the carriers.
It was the owner's brother-in-law who couldn't sell, who wound up in charge of,
that's right,
of logistics or supply chain back in the day, wasn't it?
And I'm glad I stuck it out long enough to actually see all this come, right?
Yeah.
Watch all
And
this
it does
innovation.
feel like you've stuck it out. I mean, Scott and I have been part of this rapid revolution over the course of just the last couple of years, but up until that point, it almost felt like we were shouting in the wilderness. We talked a lot about supply chain getting a seat at the table, and it rapidly went from the way that supply chain was described to me by a brilliant mind at one time. When you're out of stock, it's your fault. When you're overstocked, it's your fault. And if something happens to go right, it's thank God for that sales team.
It's so true.
And it went from that, blamed for everything, to necessary evil very quickly, to strategic differentiator, to now right in the forefront of a company's brand.
Yeah. And if you're doing it right, you're helping to grow your company, which it's wild. It is so much fun. It's so exciting that it's getting the attention it deserves.
Agreed, Jill and Greg. Let me share a couple quick comments here real quick before Jill shares some more some best practices. So Ashley says, regards from Ireland, very bent on logistics and supply chain analysis, especially in this environment. Here for insights for his interview tomorrow with Jim Nagel.
Good.
That is great. Morgan really appreciates, Greg, your comment. Then his brother-in-law that couldn't sell, in tears there. Love that.
I've seen it so many times, literally hundreds of times.
Dr. Vyas agreed with a lot of what you were just sharing a moment ago, Jill, especially as the industry has morphed and become more valuable and become more recognized. And of course, as you were stating, what a wonderful time to be in industry.
Yeah.
And then finally, I want to say hello to Harsh. via India, who is tuned in on LinkedIn. Great to have you here. And Kyle says 2020 was the year of the supply chain. I think 2021 is gonna vie for that title as well, Kyle. Great point.
No doubt. So let's talk about that. I mean, considering that history of where you've seen how you entered the industry and where you've seen it go from and come to, a lot of that we recognize now, as you were talking about, of being an important part of your brand identity, of your corporate success, right? Of your bottom line, your bottom line delivery. 2020 was a year. I said it, Scott. I was supposed to never say it again, but that past year that shall never be mentioned again was quite the year. What was kind of the greatest eureka aha moment that you had in regard to 2020?
So for me personally, it was the real-time data. Having access to real-time data. So you can imagine in our world, we are managing millions and millions and millions of dollars of freight shipments. And, one of the things that we've done, invested a lot of money and also people. I was the fool who said, oh, we get a TMS, we bring our clients all this visibility. I'm the operations person, right? We're going to be in great shape. Well, I was so wrong. We have that TMS. We have about 9 to 10 other software applications that sit into that TMS. And then we now have an entire data team. We have data developers on staff. We have data scientists on staff, product managers. But what it gives us is this real-time data. And I knew the power of it. But man, oh man, having that through those first, 10 to 12 weeks of this pandemic and being able to, we tend to work and report to supply chain directors, VP of Ops, CFOs. We were having to bring this information hourly, daily, weekly to boards. We were bringing it to our key contacts to bring it to their board. In the first 5 weeks of this pandemic, you saw just things. It was like this. And so for me personally, and if you asked Steve here, he probably said, yeah, we knew we had a handle on that. But having that access to the real-time data and really understanding what market was doing and understanding it fast, it was just terrific.
So, Greg, before you pose the next question, the comments are rolling in. Let me recognize just here.
Let's do it.
Let's see. Morgan says supply chains really showed their value in 2020. Well-strong, well-structured supply chains did, at least. My dear friend Mark Preston, Mark, hope this finds you well. Companies are finally understanding that the supply chain is an extension of the company, and most of the company's revenue goes directly to the supply chain and logistics. Pratik, going back to Kyle's point about 2020 being the year of the supply chain, says absolutely 2020 gave the lessons. Now let's do your homework for year 2021. Great point.
Right.
Kyle says, let's roll up the sleeves. To your last point, Jill, William says data runs the industry now, and tracking especially to plan for delivery and shipping. Great point. And then I'm gonna pause here, and then Greg, we can pick back up with Jill. Sure. Daniel Hartnett is curious. What do you see as the biggest logistics challenges in the coming year, especially in light of the problems 2020 brought along?
We need to make Daniel a co-host.
Yeah,
that's such a great question.
That was my next question. Yeah.
Yeah. Way to go, Daniel.
Yeah.
So what I see as the biggest logistics challenges in the upcoming year are if you don't have a strategy on how you're going to approach the market, source carriers, and negotiate with carriers, you better get one fast. And if you do have a strategy, it looks very different than it did last year and years in past. Working in this market right now is very different than it was even a year ago.
What about months, Jill? I mean, has it changed? Do you feel like it's changed even in recent months, or is it pretty stable so far?
I think the capacity remains tight. I think it's going to remain tight, at least through Q1. I think COVID, the things you don't think about, think of a less than truckload environment, right? Where you have all these terminals and all this labor. And not only are they dealing with working under new guidelines And the new guidelines mean reduced staff, right? So freight's not moving as fast as it should. Then you have COVID positive cases. So now you've got people testing positive in terminals. The terminal shuts down. Then the people don't come back or can't come back. Now you're training new people to work and manage freight or drive freight, and that all disrupts service. And I don't think, we don't think about that every day. People are just looking for their freight. Like, what is the problem? Why can't you get this to us? But that still remains a problem today, and we're still working through that. We already had a driver shortage, right?
Right.
And now, in the beginning of this pandemic, the conditions were so bad for drivers, they didn't want to be in it. And I don't blame them. They didn't even have a rest stop to use. We're talking like human fundamental conditions our drivers didn't have. So we're already in a driver shortage. Now they're leaving the market and they're not coming back to the market. So, I think we're going to be fighting that battle for a long time. And, we're certainly not through the pandemic, but the way you think about working with your carriers is very different this year than it was last.
Well, and now we've got additional physical asset issues as well with the container shortage.
That's right.
And also with the vaccines taking up so much of the cold chain capacity. And, probably that's going to occur for the next couple of years, truthfully.
If you're in the reefer market shipping, especially less than truckload reefer freight, we all eat. That freight still needs to move. You're going to have some problems moving it. And so how do you understand those market conditions? And again, if you're responsible for the carrier relationships in your company, and then you have to keep up on market conditions and what is available to me, that's a team job. And it's usually left to one person within an organization. Really hard to stay on top of market when you're also got a million other things to do.
Yeah.
All right. So let's share a couple of comments here. This is generating a ton of interest as expected, Jill. And,
good.
And the conversation here. Let's see here. Peter says agility will be the topic skill needed. What worked yesterday will not work tomorrow or the day after. Evolve and reinvent constantly rather than rinse and repeat, right? Nerfad, can't wait until capacity is looser than the sleeve of a wizard. And I paint the picture, abracadabra. I can see that, Nerfad. Love it. Let's see here. To Harsh's question, you've already touched on that a little bit. Both of y'all have with the reefer. I want to pose Bob Bova. Big Show Bob Bova has a great question here. Data is only good if you have fluidity in process implementation to exploit it. Do you think this is why we are seeing a compartmentalization of transportation, material sourcing, and distribution center operations? Any commentary there, Jill?
Bad data in is bad data out. You're 100% right. And, getting fluid in that process it's not easy. It's really, really, really hard. We have a client who they just brought in a new VP of operations, and we did just a cover call to say, here's how we're managing your data. So we get an order file, a PO file, a sales order file, and then we have digital connections with carriers. And then we're talking back to their ERP system at given times at certain milestones. And, this person was just blown away. She's like, we've been trying to do this at our other company for 15 years. How did you do this? And said, it's really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And it's also really hard to explain. So, I think I'm answering the question, but it's really why you've got to understand data, and you also have to understand operations and freight so you can make sure that data works for you, not against you. But let me know if I answered the question, because I'm not 100% sure. I did see it up there for a minute.
Yeah,
I think Scott,
you got A+ for the day, Jill.
Good.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. I think further you have to recognize that if in data it regards the compartmentalization, there's a red thread that is applicable to transportation, to distribution, to whatever, right? To every aspect of it. And then there are adjacent bits of data that are specific for each of those operational divisions, right? So,
and then when you build it, you got to keep checking it to make sure it's working right. we're breaking down freight costs down to like item levels and SKU levels for clients. And they have an idea like, well, here's how I think you should allocate. And I'm like, well, hold on, you're talking pallets, not cartons, and you have a product mix. And if you're breaking this down to a your line item freight cost at item level, that's not going to work. And here's why. Technology is not going to tell you that. It's the folks building the technology that are going to figure that stuff out. And that's really hard to do in an organization if you can't collaborate as a team. A lot of times someone from above is coming down to trans and saying, I need you to measure freight this way. And you just kind of got to figure it out and then try to get on your IT's ticket list of, can you help me with this data? That takes forever from what
escalate, please.
Well, and what you just described there, Jill, is the foundational problem. I want you to measure freight this way, not this is what I want to find out from measuring freight. And I think we, as managers and users and, whatever role you play, you have to focus not on the how, but the why, right? I want to find this out, and then let the data experts figure out what's the right way to measure to do that. Because when you mandate a measurement methodology, you're often wrong as a user, and then you send your development team down the wrong path. You get the wrong measurement, right? And I think that's a really key part of the communication, and it's one that the management team needs to own. Is ask for the goal of the data, not the method of the data or the data analysis.
And then learn how to talk to each other. Because, we experienced that pain. What we call a shipment, data team does not. What we call optimization, data team does not. And so, we have, she's wonderful. Talking about supply chain, she came to us with her master's in supply chain right out of college. And she has the ability, we call it a project manager, but it's so much more than that because she's the interpreter. She's the interpreter between the data and the business operation and the client operation. And when I tell you the time that we have saved on developing these solutions with the technology for our clients, because she has the ability to speak both languages. I would say in operations, okay, data team, this is the report the client needs. And I would outline the requirements and I would get the client something they didn't want because I didn't understand how data, technology, the developers, how that world works enough to explain what the client was looking for. And, that's another key. When you talk strategy with data, there's a lot of players involved and there needs to be so that you're all speaking the same language.
And Kyle, Megan Kidder, I think is a team member you're referring to there. Huge shout out.
And Mark Jill didn't want you to give out the name because she doesn't want somebody to come hire her away.
If you steal her, you'll deal with my three brothers.
So Mark Preston shares a great rhetorical question, kind of going back, touching on a couple points here. Are you looking at the value stream? Or are you just paying attention to who is yelling the loudest, which can be a very traditional dilemma?
Well, that's the proactive versus reactive, right?
Yes. Yeah. I want to pose this as someone in, during some of my time in manufacturing, I hated repricing. I hated it, especially with large accounts that had numerous parts and was tied to a quarterly index. It took the negotiating out, but man, it was so much admin work. Speak to this if you could, Jill. So what are your thoughts? Dylan says, what are your thoughts on index-linked contracts, specifically in ocean and air freight?
I think they're a good measurement. I think they're a good strategy for understanding market. But, so much of our world, and sometimes data is to blame because there's so much access to it. But in my mind, you never want to be out shopping rates. We don't even think about it as a request for pricing. We think about it as a request for partnership. You've got to get really strategic with these providers, whether they're an MVOCC, a direct to steamship line, an air freight, a domestic, it just doesn't matter. You have to build a strategy around your carrier negotiations. You use those indexes and you use all that market information to understand conditions and costs. But recognize that your conditions that you're asking a carrier to adhere to as it relates to service or liability, Incoterms, any of that stuff, that's unique to you. And so that's why there has to be a strategy on negotiating. We see so many times these bids get released and it's truly a rate shopping exercise, and it's done in an Excel file. Nobody vets a carrier or has a discussion with them to say, can you actually handle this service before I even send you the bid? So, having a solid carrier sourcing strategy, those indexes are part of it, but they are certainly not the whole of it.
Excellent. Great question. Appreciate your perspective there. All right. So I know, Greg, I know we wanted to kind of pick some of, I think, Jill's top 3.
Yeah. We've talked about so many things. So, and this is a really complex environment. So if you had to distill it down to the top things that companies need to be aware of, focused on attacking in 2021, what would you say that is?
Yeah, so I would say your people. You want to have subject matter experts available in your organization, or working with your organization that understands deeply operations via carriers and pricing and the modes you're shipping in, right? So if you are a very large small package shipper or receiver, you've got to understand that market really, really well. And gosh, that market has completely flipped, right? We're all now having everything delivered at the house. So even prior, we were moving that way. Now it's even more, and it has absolutely disrupted your cost. You're paying more. There's all these surcharges now, and the movement of your freight. So, that's just one example, but people are very important. And again, I go to the strategy. We call it process, but it's really a strategy, and it's really, really important that you work with your carrier providers and you treat them as such. They are partners. They are your partners managing your freight. And you've got to recognize, if you're buying a truck today and tomorrow you're going to buy it from someone else for $100 less and you're feeling like a win, you are not winning. You're not winning at all. So really having a good negotiation strategy, and then the technology to support that. Someone said this to me yesterday, and I thought, wow, you just said it so simply. Like you said, Greg, it's so hard to do. This data and tech, it's hard. But what's the goal of it, right? Mm-hmm. And someone said this to me yesterday, and they said, our goal is to get out of Excel files and out of reports and into a data warehouse and into data analytics. And that is absolutely the strategy you should be thinking about when you talk about freight spend, freight shipments, orders, and putting that all together. You want to be in a data warehouse with data analytics. And what's the difference? So you're in Excel and you're running pivot tables and you're trying to make decisions. And most of the time, if you're in that environment, it's an after the fact. It's the history, right? So maybe you can make a better decision going forward. But if you're in a data warehouse and you're thinking about data analytics, you're thinking about real-time data that you can actually make real-time decisions on. And then you've got, interactive BI tools. So now, instead of running pivot tables, you simply click and say, hey, where's my volume from here to here? What is it? And you've got these interactive tools to take that real-time data and provide you some really valuable information. You just get your hands on it a lot quicker. It sounds easy. It's really, maybe Boston, it's wicked hard.
There we go.
It's wicked hard, but it's, and it will save you time, and it will save you money, and it will reduce cost. It just will. So
I gotta not to play devil's advocate, but I want to pose an interesting component of a conversation we had yesterday, because I'm a big, to your point you're making, I think Greg is too, I'm a big relationship person, right? I love relationships. I love big picture partnerships. I love the, all the different ways of the give and take beyond just the transaction. That's how I'm geared. However, we had a fascinating conversation yesterday, Greg, with someone in freight and transportation. And from her perspective, as she was talking to shippers and carriers, there seemed to be less value and importance placed on the relationship in her conversations and her data than taking advantage of some of the automation to find opportunities, whether it's pricing or otherwise. Have you seen? So I'm being my own devil's advocate, I think. But Jill,
Yes.
have you seen any movement when you hear something like that? What does that mean to you?
So what she's saying is, I think, but having the access to the real-time data and the technology, having visibility to what's available in the market, those are all the tools. And what I'm saying is you have all those tools, but you don't think about it transactionally, because it's your carrier sourcing strategy, right? So you, instead of going out to the market to everyone on a load board to say, can you cover this load today? Maybe you start there and you start building relationships with carriers. But really where you want to end up is kind of what she's saying, married with true trusted carrier partners who can work in this real live environment with you and be successful. Because if you can be successful with tools, products, technology, you can build a good carrier sourcing strategy, and you are out in a live environment, but you're doing it with trusted carrier partners, and you're not just doing it with a carrier you've never heard of, you can't vet, you just run with them. That's not safe, right? That can cause problems.
I appreciate that. I really think, Greg, we can have our cake and eat it too if you have the right approach. So a few quick comments from the audience. Gary does a nice job kind of summarizing 3 of your key points there. Invest in people that understand the market, SMEs, treat suppliers and partners, invest in technology. Thank you very much, Gary. Marie says, as a former Massachusetts kid, Jill just made me homesick. Only we say wicked that way.
We do.
Only we do. Marie had that way as well. Wicked had.
Lots of folks enjoyed that. Bob Bova says lowest cost is almost a guarantee of the wrong decision. Depend on the best partners. They won't let you down. I love that.
100% true.
And I'm going to, we'll stop here with Nirfad and then we'll circle back. Greg, I am designing new technology that will tell me what kind of Subway sandwich the trucker ordered at the truck stop so I can translate and market 100% visibility into the transit happenings on my customers' loads. This is an added value at no extra cost to my customers. So
that's what the data tells us is the Subway sandwich is the key, right? If they get a spicy Italian, they're going to need a nap.
Honestly, to that point, as innovation, if you're innovating, I know it's somewhat of a joke, but you're thinking about how can I support these drivers on the road? There's solutions out there now that with all of these rest areas shutting down and maybe even the fear of them might happen. And again, we might go through this again. What will I do? Right. There's solutions out there that offer visibility to companies and parking and, that are offering these solutions for these drivers. So I know we joke about it, but, that is a value add. If you're negotiating with a carrier and you have value to add to their drivers, that's a value add.
Agreed.
That's the right way to think about it.
Well, if we can elaborate a little bit on your point, Greg, we've had a variety of conversations around driver appreciation, the small things that really add up. And this is not a small thing, but we've talked about this before in Atlanta. The local powers that be between the city and state infrastructure and industry players were trying to solve this, how much time it takes for truck drivers to find a nice, safe, secure rest area. Right. And Greg, I think it was like approaching 90 minutes every day. And just imagine beyond the efficiency losses, that's not even the most important thing. But imagine the stress on the driver. Imagine the compromises that probably have to take place where they're parking in not so safe or not well lit or places that's not convenient to get good food that we should all enjoy.
That's right. And that point where you're taking an hour and a half to find a rest area, a safe one, you're at that point probably been driving and delivering all day. You're exhausted, you're hungry. And I don't know about you, but when I'm feeling that way, man, you're 100% right.
Right.
You got to do better.
Yes.
And with ELD and all of that, they could be timing out, right? So they're desperate. right? And we've
That's
seen
right.
what happens sometimes when they're desperate and pick the wrong spot.
That's right.
And so many of the places you used to be able to go, Walmart parking lots, are being closed down. So, I mean, it's a very difficult thing, right? And it's clearly something we need to figure out.
We just have to do better as an industry. We just
I
do.
think
That's why I love these kind of conversations. Because
I think one of the solutions is, to your point about data, Jill, is we have to give awareness of where it is safe to park, which I think we could do with an app, and also whether you can reasonably get there before you time out. Because if you're at a Quick Trip or a Pilot or whatever on the edge of town, and you drive into town, that doesn't make it easier to find parking. It makes it harder. Maybe we could tell them, stay here, get up here, get to your appointment on time. I mean, the technology certainly exists to be able to say those things, to do those things. We just need to be sure that we can tie into the right data to attack that problem.
Right.
Excellent point. Hey,
can I take us back just real quick to this relationship thing? Because I think one of the things we have to understand is, what does relationship mean? Because look, we're not here, though it does happen a lot, to slap one another on the back and get hammered together, right? And I think in the old days, Jill, when you and I started in supply chain, that's what they meant by relationship. Pay a little bit extra, and I'll take you to your favorite
take an L
later.
It's not even that. I mean, with what you see with the involvement of data is, the carriers just always took the blame. They were going to get it anyway.
Right.
They had no way of proving themselves that they didn't cause the problem, so they just took the blame.
Yep.
And in our 33 plus years of doing this work, when the shipper of choice stuff came out, I was like, oh, come on, that's just a catchword. That's the work we've been doing forever, which is, you don't necessarily have a carrier problem. You have a problem in the way you're working with your carriers. And if you can be open enough to fix some of these things, you're going to have a better service from your carrier, because they're going to be your partner, right? Yeah. And it's little things and small things. Let the driver use the bathroom. That would be great if you could do that.
Be kind, be patient, be tolerant. That'd be nice. A great starting point. Be human.
Right.
I want to share, we've spoken so much about data here today. I want to share this from Nate Morrison, because he makes a great point. Because as we all know, present company excluded, there's a huge rush by business leadership across supply chains to take advantage of this digital transformation and get the shiniest piece of technology or platform or app or you name it. However, Nate makes a great point. He says data quality cannot be underestimated. Or he's probably saying overestimated. Everyone wants to digitize as quickly as possible and work from a data control tower like technology with clean data. But the goal is continuous data quality. Data will always need to be monitored. Great point. Digital supply chain platforms or solutions need to offer data quality as a need-to-have service. Great point.
It's got to be a position within the organization that if you've built a digital workflow, that thing is constantly being monitored for accuracy. And not just accuracy, how can we do it better, and what's available in the market to help us do it better? And again, it's more than a full-time job, for sure.
Chief Data Control Officer in the future. Chief Data Control Officer. Let's see here. Marie. Me neither. Hey, Marie says, shipper of choice, all facilities have break areas should have break areas for truck drivers. Great point, Marie. That's I think of a top 10 list of just basic. It should be table stakes things that companies and sites should do to take care of our drivers. Ryan Schreiber, who's been on with Jamin in one of our previous episodes. Ryan, great to see you here.
Ryan, he's awesome.
This is clearly more important than our call
for this, huh?
I did. We had like a 2-hour call scheduled. Don't worry, Ryan. You're in good hands. You know you are.
And Ryan, you're an OG, so you're in the trusted circle. I'm sure that Jill probably has a bat phone in her office to Ryan. Mike Avers says, we started compiling a master list of trucker-friendly places from our local less than truckload guys, so we could relay that info to drivers who did not operate in that portion of the country on a regular basis.
Great idea. Wow. Good for you.
I think when we think about, respectful ways to treat drivers and carriers, I think, wouldn't it be nice if I've been on this side of the table, as you know, Scott. I've been a shipper before. Wouldn't it be nice? Because it would be nice for me, by the way, as if I'm in the purchasing or merchandising department, it would be nice if when my distribution center made an appointment, they kept the damn thing, because then the driver doesn't need a lounge at our facility. The driver comes, empties their trailer, and off they go to their next pickup. Part of the problem is it happens way before we have to accommodate drivers with a lounge or something like that. It's because we're not doing the foundational things as shippers to make sure they can drop their load at the scheduled time and move on.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that need to happen, as Jill, as you have very diplomatically said, from both sides, right? Be kinder to your driver, of course. Be kinder to your carrier generally by being respectful enough to be on time.
Sure.
And that solves a lot of the problems. So is there, let me display my ignorance for a second here. Jill, you may know, is there a, just like for years now, as consumers of all sorts have encountered different transactions and been able to rate their customer experience with different retailers, different services, you name it. Are there any services out there where drivers can rate their experience with different companies and sites that might guide different decisions? Anything like that out there that measures that driver's experience?
I'm not sure. I'm sure they're coming if they're not.
There are.
Right? Because most of that is coming through kind of the carrier experience. But yeah, absolutely. And even, you're talking about all of these applications for drivers to help them, but they should be involved in the process. What matters to them?
Excellent point. They should have a seat at the table.
Right now, to whose point? William's point earlier. Yeah, and thank you, Ryan. To William's point earlier, there are a ton of apps out there to do all kinds of things, but I think somehow we need to consolidate those a bit, because it's not practical to think that someone who is driving 44,000 pounds of goods can be staring down at their phone and going, "Oh wait, that's not on this app. It's on that one." Right? Right? Oh, sorry.
Consolidate. Yeah. Great point.
Yeah.
I mean, so we need to figure out what, as you said, Jill, we need to talk to the drivers. We need to engage with the drivers and figure out what are the biggest problems to solve, put them in a single place. And I think that will really facilitate a lot better service from any application.
You want to take that one on, keep me posted.
Yeah.
There are some industries out there, and we could do a whole talk about this, but it's a nightmare for the driver. That delivery is a nightmare for the carrier. The appointment process is a complete pain in the bum. And then to add salt to the wound, that customer charges back their shipper for foolishness. Your dock stamp was 2 minutes after your dock appointment. I mean, it's nuts. And companies, shippers that are in these industries with difficult customers and difficult deliveries, they have major chargeback problems. And without data, you have a really hard time getting through, understanding even why they're occurring.
Excellent point.
But that's a topic for another day. We could go on with that.
Well, Jill, I don't want to step on Ryan's toes. I want to make sure y'all get that 2-hour conversation in today.
Yeah. I miss him.
He's good people. I really enjoyed. He
it's
sat down with
amazing.
Damon on our end probably a few months back. Fascinating discussion and clearly dropping some knowledge in the comments here. So Ryan, I hope this finds you well. All right, so Jill, as we start to wind things down, Amanda or Clay, if y'all could make sure now FreightPlus, I almost said Aborn, FreightPlus.
So do I every day.
Has y'all do a wonderful job educating the industry, and I love that. I've checked out. I love your informational YouTube videos. I think I saw one of your team members kind of walk us through the transportation value stream, really kind of illustrating some of the basic key points there. So y'all check that out. I want to make sure the podcast that you and Kyle and the whole team are really active on. Greg and I enjoyed a little appearance. Yeah, let's drop that in the comments if we could. Oh, we got it right there. Great. That's a direct link. We'll take you to, I think, all of your past.
Oh, I was actually pointing to my monitor over here. How fortuitous is that the comments are on that side for us?
Hey, Greg, a genius. I'll tell you what.
He's trying.
All right, but Jill, how can folks, as we wrap up with you here, how can folks connect with you and in different ways they might want to connect with FreightPlus?
Yeah, sure. So if you want to do it quickly, just hit me up on LinkedIn, Jill Clifford. You can also hit our website, which is freightplus.io. But, you talk about the educational piece and, not only education, we love collaborating with people. And that's what I love about forums like this, to have these discussions. And a lot of time in the work that we're in, we're at an event and you want to go collaborate and chat with someone about their challenges. They sometimes assume we want to sell them something, and I don't want to sell anyone anything. I'm really just excited that we can collaborate as an industry, because there's a lot of work to do in this industry, and there's a lot of really great, intelligent people who are really passionate about freight, which is great. So yeah, definitely hit me up on LinkedIn. It's probably the easiest way.
Excellent. And there's plenty of business out there. There's so much business and opportunity out there. Jill, I really I love your approach to this conversation. You kept it focused on the industry and the challenges and some of the solutions and where we are, where we're headed. So I really appreciate that approach, and a pleasure to connect with you and Kyle again here today.
Yeah.
You too. Thank you, Greg. And thank you, Scott. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Jill. This is going to be a great listen back for folks to get some valuable information, to get some stuff done. So thank you.
Good. And like I said, if you want to dig in any deeper, just reach out.
Can you just do us a quick favor before you go? Can you just say wicked anything before you go, please?
This was wicked fun. And I'm really hoping we can do this again and have a wicked good time.
Thanks, Jill. I really appreciate it. Great having you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Jill Clifford, president at FreightPlus, formerly Aborn & Company. Have a wonderful new year. We'll talk with you soon, Jill.
Thank you. You too.
Man, that was a fast moving. We had a bunch of comments we couldn't get to. I had a bunch of things I want to ask her, but it was such a fast moving conversation. But I like her approach. That approach, educate first. Yeah, here's who we are. Here's what we do. But here is what we got to talk about. And that's what makes these sessions so enjoyable.
Yeah, I think a unique, a unique perspective for somebody who's been in the industry for so long, to have the ability to remain so introspective on the industry, and to have new ideas and these recognitions and not get stuck in this is the way we've always done things. That's a real gift. And they clearly have some really gifted people as well. The person she talked about, I got to tell you, two people came to mind when she talked about that person who communicates between what the users need, their goals, right, and what that means that the technology or data team needs to deliver. That person in between that does that translating, that is a true gift. And Megan, I think is her name. You guys don't go try to steal her, because Jill will kill you. But there are people out there that do that. And I think it's an important thing to recognize that it's not always a third person. Sometimes the person on the tech side can interpret that, and sometimes the person on the user side can do that. But you definitely need that person who can speak the language of both the user and the tech side in those kind of areas. And just also what she has seen happen in the industry and what she sees coming, spot on. And fascinating to me that I think FreightPlus is maybe the new name for the family business, right? Because like I said earlier, Steve's still on the front page of the site, and you can clearly see that Jill, if she's not a member of the family, is about as close as you can be. But taking this family business into the future with what is simply a new identity. So,
well, all I know is that next time we want to have Jill on the show, we're going to have to go through about 4 agents and a whole department. Clearly, she's got a bunch of fans here in the comments. So, and we let her go without getting her autograph. Come on, Greg. Come on, man.
We still got a shot. You guys have all missed out.
Well, I love conversations like this. My background, not speaking for you, but I think I can a little bit here. I'm not I didn't come up through supply chain doing transportation and freight. Yeah, I shipped some stuff, but mainly manufacturing and solving those problems was a lot of what I've done. And I learned a lot here today through these conversations. So always a pleasure. Greg, before we sign off, let's see, today we published the Tequila Sunrise replay on how to give. And you had 3 quick tips. I want to share that one more time because the folks can't hear that enough. So they can go to Tequila Sunrise for the replay from last week's live stream. But what are 3 quick tips there to effectively apply your giving?
Give simple, give small, and give now. So we're going to talk about on the show, we did talk on New Year's Eve. There may have been a little tequila involved, actual tequila involved too. But we're going to talk about how to execute on that. I was thinking about that last night is you can just make it effortless, frankly, effortless. You don't have to give till it hurts. You can make it effortless and still feel good about it. So we talk a little bit about how to do that.
Just do it, though. Whatever you do, just do it. Make sure. And we love the organizations that's baked into the DNA. So, all right. So if you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure you can check us out and find a lot more of the conversations just like this at supplychainnow.com. Be sure to check out Tequila Sunrise, and that's just the latest episode of a slew of episodes Greg leads, talking supply chain tech and really starting to talk more greater just tech in general, right, Greg?
Yeah. I mean, look, this, as we just discussed, data and technology, they are the future. Somebody here said it very concisely. I think it may have been William said it very concisely. Technology is the key to the industry. So, we're going to identify the companies and the people that are making it happen in tech.
Awesome. So check that out wherever you get your podcast from. Check us out at supplychainnow.com. Most importantly, thank you to our community for showing up. So many great comments and questions. I know we couldn't get to all of them. That's that and great guests like Jill, but what y'all bring really makes this really rewarding and a great learning opportunity. So appreciate y'all showing up as always. Scott Luton, Greg White, on behalf of our entire team here. Hey, do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. And on that note, we'll see you next time here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.